Fantrax Fantasy Football Streams of the Week for Week 4. CJ Stroud faces the Steelers, who you might think is not a great matchup, but this guy has been great. The rookie is tied for 4th in passing attempts. He's 5th in passing yards. He's had back-to-back 20-plus fantasy point scoring weeks. And his connection has looked great with guys like Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and even Robert Woods. Brock Purdy against the Steelers, 220 and 2 passing touchdowns. Deshaun Watson, 235, a touchdown and an interception. Jimmy G did throw 3 picks against the Steelers, but he did finish with 324 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Matthew Stafford draws the Colts, who allow the 4th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence threw for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. CJ Stroud, 384 and 2 touchdowns. And then Lamar Jackson just had 303 total yards against the Colts. Matthew Stafford is number 2 in passing attempts, number 4 in passing yards. He's had 2 out of 3 of his games played with over 300 passing yards. He just has to score some touchdowns. And monitor the Derek Carr injury. Jameis Winston would be next man up, and I'd love to talk about a revenge game narrative against the Buccaneers. For tight ends, Luke Musgrave draws the Lions on Thursday Night Football, who allow the 2nd most fantasy points per game to tight ends. Pitts caught 5 balls for 41 yards last week. Noah Fant and Kobe Parkinson combined for 6 catches and 97 receiving yards in Week 2. So Detroit's a plus matchup, and Luke Musgrave has played 75, 88, and 86% of the snaps for the Packers. The best sign is that Musgrave is coming off of an 8-target game in Week 3. Next, we got Gerald Everett, who plays the Raiders, who allow the 7th most fantasy points per game to tight ends. Mike Williams unfortunately tore his ACL, and everybody's talking about Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston, but Gerald Everett last week caught all 6 of his targets. Last season, he had 5 top 12 fantasy weeks. Little bit of a sleeper here, but Logan Thomas faces the Eagles, who allow the most fantasy points per game to tight ends. Week 1, Hunter Henry against the Eagles, 5 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. Then Week 2 against the Eagles, TJ Hawkinson, 7 catches for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. Logan Thomas was targeted 8 times in Week 1. Then in Week 2, he left the game early due to a concussion, which is why he missed Week 3. But in that game, he did score a touchdown. And then finally, my defense and special teams to stream this week is the Cincinnati Bengals, who face the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have scored the 3rd least points this season and the 2nd least total yards. Last week, Cincinnati's defense was hot. They had 2 picks and 6 sacks. Be sure to follow the Fantrax socials for consistent content to help you win your leagues this year.